Whenever you're ready, Donna. Goodness, all right. Good morning, everyone. We'll call the meeting to order at 9:08 a.m. this morning. Thank you for joining us. Before you, you have a proposed agenda. Are there any additions, deletions, anything to do with the agenda? John?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to move to adopt the agenda as presented.
Thank you, John. John has moved to adopt the agenda as presented. Is there any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Moving down, adoption of the minutes. Item C, you have the County Council meeting minutes from June 19th, 2025. Any errors, omissions, anything arising from the minutes? Mark?
I'd like to move the adoption of the County Council meeting minutes of June 19th, 2025.
Thank you very much, Mark. Mark has moved for the adoption of the County Council meeting minutes June 19th, 2025 as presented. Is there any further discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. We have one time commitment today. We have a 10 a.m. public hearing. Other than that, no other time commitments. So with that, why don't we move down to item D, subdivision applications, and we'll start with today's subdivision applications. Item D1, subdivision application 2025-0-037. Good morning, Steve.
Good morning, Steve.
All right. So this first application in front of you this morning, some of you may recognize from a few years ago. And the applicants back in 2000, so about 5 years ago, applied there just southeast of Picture Butte on the north side of the river to subdivide an acreage out to put a new yard in there. Subsequent to that subdivision being approved by the county, they discovered that I guess they didn't pay real close attention to the parcel property lines when they were setting up the yard, and they have some encroachments over onto the neighboring agricultural land. They didn't worry too much about the time at it because the land's in the same family in the quarter, and then some of the family members own the acreage. But one of the things was that they did locate they were unaware, and they located the septic system out onto the agricultural field on the north side, which is up in this corner up here. It juts out. And in accordance with the provincial regulations, the private septic has to be on site, has to be on the parcel that's associated with the dwelling. So they've reapplied here to do a boundary reconfiguration to capture that septic field up in that northwest kind of corner. As well, the access that went over to the East County Road is being dropped down from where it was originally approved up here down to where it's physically located, and there's approach and culvert in place over here to the East Road, so that the access before it was in a sense trespassing over the other parcel to come in, so that'll become part of their parcel, so that access part is being jogged down. So overall, it's a difference of about 0.95 acres in land. They had an existing 3.73 acre parcel back in 2000 that was approved. With this readjustment going on, it results in a 3.87 acre parcel. So largely the intent here is just to rectify these encroachment issues and to properly capture the access to provide them legal and physical access to the property. especially if one or the other parcels ever sells down the road, that everything is in place. So with this, the application will be we'll call it subdivision consolidation. So they take those portions and consolidate by plan. So the surveyor has done a new plan here. So basically the old plan will be overwritten with the new one once it's registered. During the circulation of this application, there was no objections or concerns received on the proposal. It can be considered under the county subdivision policy. We do have a realignment reconfiguration of policy that allows for boundary adjustments and reconfigurations of existing parcels. The application is located within the IDP plan area with the town of Picture Butte, so it was referred to them. They have not responded as of this morning to the application. With the original application, they had no concerns or comments on it when it was originally approved. So with that, there's a recommendation in front of you to approve the new layout configuration as per the new plan. That would be on the basis that the taxes are paid up to date, development agreement be entered into if required, and that they provide that final plan of survey to capture the new layout as presented on the application there to capture those improvements.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Steve. I'd open up to council for any questions or discussion you might have. Go ahead, John.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In my mind, this seems like a very straightforward thing, just to do a realignment, not dramatically increase the property boundaries. So I would like to move that subdivision application 2025-0-037 be approved subject to conditions as outlined in the draft resolution.
Thank you, John. John has moved the recommendation that subdivision application 2025-0-037 be approved subject to the conditions as outlined in the draft resolution. Is there any further discussion? I'll call the question. Those in favor? Those opposed? That is carried. Thank you, John. Thanks, Steve. Moving down, subdivision application, number 2, subdivision application 2025-0-084. Steve?
All right, this next application, council is probably also familiar with because you've dealt with the they all open, or is it? Okay. Oh, I see. Okay. Got it for next time. Okay. Thanks. So this next application, council's dealt with the area structure plan on it in the past, just southeast of Colehurst on the Davies property. And more recently, he dealt with rescinding the area structure plan for the land. Also, the east side, they removed the group country residential designation over here, but the separate landowner on the west side here wanted to keep it, and at that time for the rescinding, he had a conceptual design scheme plan that was presented when that process was done, just to do 3 lots here instead of the original 6 that were proposed on the west side there. So the applicant, once that process was complete, he submitted his subdivision application here to create these 3 lots. on the west side of this property, just to the east side of Range Road 22-3. The lots have access onto that municipal road. There's one approach in place already, and the other two lots are proposing to have a shared approach in place to try to limit the approaches onto that road. That'll be located between lots 2 and 3, lots 3 and 4. The one's more to the south there. The north one has the access in place already. So with this proposal, the applicant downscaled just due to the water situation with the rural water co-op there largely. So the applicant does have currently 1 unit for water. So the other 2 lots, it's proposed at this time they'll just be to a cistern, hold water at this density. With if there's ever opportunity in the future to have that rural water connection at that point, that then they would connect to that. So this land, there was a geotechnical and soil assessment and such done years back when it was originally rezoned to the Group Country Residential designation. So that's all on file with us in the county. So overall, this proposal conforms to the county's land use by criteria for Group Country Residential subdivision, and it aligns with the conceptual design scheme that was put in place for this 3-lot application. One of the things with this application is the applicant will have to pay a municipal reserve payment to the county. Since the agenda draft report came out to you, we do have that value back now, and it did come in at $35,000 per acre that he'll have to pay on the municipal reserve portion of that. Once that is paid, there's a caveat on title that will be discharged to reflect the payment of that. So part of this proposal, it is land located within the city of Lethbridge and county IDP plan boundary. During the circulation, the city responded, and they have no concerns or objections. The IDP did allow for this type of subdivision based on the pre-planning that was done earlier. It is in a referral area to the town of Colehurst as part of the Colehurst IDP. However, at the time of agenda preparation and of this morning, we haven't heard anything back from Colehurst on it. They didn't object to the earlier proposal that was more dense, had higher the density when the original Group Country Residential subdivision was done. But this obviously is less dense than that earlier proposal, and there'll be less people using Range Road 22-3 for access in and out. One of the other things with this application is it within the referral distance of Alberta Transportation, because Highway 25 obviously doesn't take access directly off the highway. They have no concerns or objections with it. And as well, it is an area, some of the land is flagged for historic resources, but historic resources says that they're exempt and won't have to do anything or apply for historical resource clearance. So with that, there was no objections or concerns received on the application. So on the basis of it conforming to the conceptual design scheme and to the Group Country Residential criteria, I have recommended an approval to you, and that would be on the basis of that municipal reserve be paid on the 14.19 acres at the market value of $35,000 per acre. Taxes are paid up to date. A development agreement is entered into with the county, and as well, a copy of architectural controls be provided and registered on title. Part of that's not so much a concern with color and size of houses or dwellings themselves, that sort of thing, but there was a few recommendations in the soils analysis that was done for the septic systems, and we just like that information to carry over to new purchasers so they're aware of that. So if we put that in, have the applicant put that in the architectural controls, then it shows up on title, and the people buying the lots, the titles, are supposed to be cognizant of that. So anyways, it's just a way to kind of help them get that information. So with those 4 conditions and the reserve payment, the recommendation is to approve.
Thank you, Steve. I'd open up to council for any questions or discussion. Go ahead, Lauren.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, Steve, more of a question of clarification of a term. Conceptual versus a real firm plan, because you have now, with this, you have 5 lots in that corner almost.
Yep.
And you got one across the road. So at what point does it need to be kind of a more advanced plan?
Yeah, the difference between area structure plan and conceptual design scheme is that area structure plan is always adopted by bylaw by council. Conceptual design schemes not adopted by bylaw. You could have a conceptual design scheme that has more than 3 or 5 lots. You could have 20 lots in a conceptual design scheme if you wanted. So the main difference is one's adopted by bylaw, one's not. The other thing is, in the county's municipal development plan, there is some criteria in there for when a area structure plan is required by the county to be by bylaw, and then the criteria for a conceptual design scheme. So in that MDP criteria, it does speak to 5 or more lots for the area structure plan. And less than that, somebody can prepare a conceptual design scheme. So if it is a conceptual design scheme and it's not done by bylaw, but they did have to prepare it for the county, that was presented to you at the a month or 2 ago when you did the rescinding of the area structure plan. So that does become part of the file in the application. That's what we based our review on, and becomes part of the subdivision file. So use the subdivision authority can hold them to that design scheme as part of your approval. And we look to see if what they submit on the application aligns with what you kind of agree to, they could do in that conceptual design scheme. But the main difference is that one's done by bylaw and one's not.
Go ahead, John.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's sort of a follow-up on that, then. An area structure plan would be essentially just more stringent than a conceptual design.
Yeah, so that's correct. Through the chair of Councillor Koob's question, that an area structure plan, if adopted by bylaw, is a statutory plan, right? So a statute or a conceptual design scheme that is recognized in the subdivision development regulation. They refer to a conceptual design scheme in there. Also in the MGA on the planning matters section, they do refer to that a municipality may adopt area structure or request a conceptual design scheme. So it is a recognized under the provincial legislation. There are some municipalities like County Warren and Carson County I shouldn't say never, 99% of the time don't adopt area structure plan by bylaw. They only do conceptual design schemes. And they do that for the sole purpose. They want the flexibility that's not a statute, and they have a bit of more flexibility rather than on it. But but yeah, it's just that by bylaw, it is a statutory plan then once adopted.
Just in regards to the area structure plan that was prior in place with that, just for clarification purposes, Kohler's had a chance to review that in the referral, and they had no objections to it with a higher concentration of lots there.
That's
on
correct.
The one that was repealed. Okay. And if I may make one more, I'd like to then move that subdivision application 2025-0-084 be approved subject to conditions as outlined in the draft resolution.
Thank you, John. John has moved the recommendation that subdivision application 2025-0-084 be approved subject to the conditions as outlined in the draft resolution. Is there any further discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? Those opposed? That's carried. Thank you, John. Thank you, Steve. We can move down then to item 3, subdivision application 2025-0-089. Steve?
All right, this next application in front of you is to subdivide out a first parcel out subdivision from the quarter section. It's a proposed 2.61 acre parcel coming out of a title of 156.09 acres. As you can see there, it's just north of about 4 miles northwest of Chin in the county there. Just about 1.5 miles west of the MD at Tabor boundary. So the applicants have applied to subdivide out an existing residential yard there at the very south end along the road allowance. There are just limited improvements on site with a dwelling and accessory building. The proposed configuration, as you can see here, it's angled on the east side to account for an irrigation pivot on the agricultural land on the remainder there. Is the reason for that angled. And as well, their access is also kind of over to the east there, so it'll capture, and it's maybe hard to show up in the photo here, but their access as well is kind of to the east, that kind of swings into the parcel as well, just from this point here. So the application is for a yard that does have the existing dwelling there. It'll include their sewage private system, which is located on the north side of the dwelling. These applicants for water, they just have a cistern where they haul water to it. One of the things in reviewing this application is, and you can see in the photo there too, there are a number of oil wells and some pipelines that run through this quarter section. The circulation to the AER confirmed that. The yard itself and the area we're being subdivided is not impacted by the wells or the setback distances to them, and it's outside many of the required distances. So this application, during the circulation, there was no objections or concerns received from anybody. On this one, since it is the first parcel out of subdivision, the municipal reserve payment is not applicable. So it does meet the policies. It exceeds the minimum 2 acres for the yard. And as isolated country residential subdivision, it conforms to all the other criteria. So on that basis, I have recommended an approval to you with the conditions that taxes are paid up to date. A development agreement entered into if required. Likely in this case there won't be anything needed. And that they submit their final plan of survey. We haven't heard yet from all the utility companies, so there's just a condition on the easement there if there are any utility lines that run through the parcel being subdivided. But with that, and no objections or concerns received or no other requests, the recommendation is to approve as presented.
Thank you very much, Steve. I would open it up to council for any questions or discussion. Mark?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd move that subdivision application number 2025-0-089 be approved, subject to the conditions as outlined in the draft resolution.
Thank you, Mark. Mark has moved the recommendation subdivision application 2025-0-089 be approved subject to the conditions as outlined in the draft resolution. Any further questions or discussion? Not, call the question. Those in favor? Those opposed? That is carried. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Steve. We have one remaining subdivision application for today. Item 4, subdivision application 2025-0-094.
All right, Mr. Chair, this last subdivision application for you this morning is for a parcel of land just located immediately to the east of Keo Lake. The applicants have applied here under the cutoff fragmented title policy to separate the north and south sides of a quarter section that's split by a main LNAD canal right-of-way that cuts through the quarter section. So they're looking to separate and create a 41.44 acre to the south of the canal, and there will be a remnant 97.78 agricultural title on the north side of the canal. This is a canal that is registered as an irrigation plan, and that's controlled by the LNID. So that does meet the criteria and the definition in the county's bylaw for the eligibility of a cutoff fragmented parcel subdivision. As you can see from the photo here, with this being the main canal, there's no crossing the canal from the north to the south side. The landowner has to go out to the adjacent west road there in order to access and go to either side of the land. There are no buildings or improvements on either portion of the land. Both are agricultural portions. In reviewing this application, there are no abandoned gas wells, historical features, environmental features on this land that impact the subdivision. As part of the referral here, it was sent out, besides the typical utility agencies and that sort of stuff, to the LNID, who had no objections to the subdivision. Just have their standard conditions there for the under the Water and Irrigation Act there of arranging the irrigation acres on the parcels. It was also sent to Alberta Environment, which actually now it is the Alberta Forestry and Parks and Tourism branch that looks after the land around Keo Lake there. They didn't provide any comments on it. And as part of the wider referral, there was no objections or concerns received from anybody else or any of the adjacent landowners. So this application as presented, it does conform to your county's subdivision policy of a cut-off fragmented parcel, which allows a title physically severed by a canal, public roadway, railway, or permanent water course to be subdivided to create separate title on either side of the physical division of the land. The only, I guess, main criteria of that is that the resultant parcel size has to be at least 2 acres, just in case of the fragmented cutoff. If once somebody has that, wants to put a house or something on there, that it at least has the minimum standard to set up a house and meet road setbacks and have a septic field and that sort of a thing. And obviously both these agriculture parcels will exceed that. And as well, both parcels have to have access to a county road as after the division. In this case, both of them will to the west side there. So on that basis, and it conforming to the county's cutoff fragmented parcel policy, I have recommended approval to you. And in this case, it would be just the standard conditions of the taxes are paid up to date, development agreement if required, and that they submit a final subdivision plan from a surveyor that delineates the 2 parcels there of the cutoffs to be registered for separate title.
Thank you very much, Steve. I'd open up to council for any questions or discussion. Whitmore.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, Steve, the larger parcel with the 97.78 acres, can it be subdivided at a future date? I know the smaller one can't.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, through to Councillor Hickey's question, the only way it could be subdivided is if in the future they put a house and a yard in there, and there was an established house and yard, if that happened years down the road, that they could potentially come back to subdivide just that house and yard out that's there. The subdivision policy allows an existing house and yard to come from the greater half, the larger area of a quarter section that's been cut off. So if that ever happened, if a house and yard got established there, there's that potential. They couldn't do that out of the south half because it's the smaller size or whatever, so. But as the way it stands today, because there is nothing there, they wouldn't be able to do it. It'd only be in a scenario if something got developed there in the future, perhaps.
Any other questions? Go ahead, Lauren.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would move that subdivision application 2025-0094 be approved with the attached recommended conditions.
Thank you, Lauren. Lauren has moved the recommendation that subdivision application 2025-0-094 be approved subject to the conditions as outlined in the draft resolution. Kevin, did you have some?
No.
Okay. Okay. Is there any other questions? If not, I'll call the question. Those in favor? Those opposed? That is carried. Thank you, Kevin. Cole, do you care where we go? Like, is there anything that's, if we just continue with corporate services, is that okay? Okay. We'll move down then to F, department reports, F1, corporate services, F1.1, the Coldell Lethbridge Community Growing Project 2025 donation request. Morning, Haley. Sorry. Whenever you're ready, Haley.
Okay.
Thank you. Sorry.
Good morning, Council. There's been a request brought forward from the Coldell Lethbridge Community Growing Project, and they're requesting that City Council consider donating towards the property taxes for the 2025 taxation year on the land parcel used for their annual charitable crop initiative. So the total taxes on that parcel are $4,800.10. So our recommendation would be that City Council donates $500 to the Coldell Lethbridge Community Growing Project, with funding from Council's donation reserve, and based on policy 161 and past council motions.
Thank you very much, Haley. Mark and then Lauren.
Thanks. Yeah, this is a request we get annually, and we always, generally will go with $500, and it might be helpful just to, the letter we get every year, and just to explain our policy a bit to them so they understand when they're, applying for it. So I'll let Lauren comment, and then anyway, I support the $500.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I just had a curious question at the amount of the taxes on the quarter. Is there something on the quarter other than farmland? Because I didn't know we had any farmland to be taxed that much.
That'd be like 2 sections.
Yeah, I would have to dig into kind of the details of what's included on that parcel.
There is a dwelling and a shop and some other few things on that quarter, I believe, yeah. But I'm not sure if it's something I know, yeah.
Kind of
Yeah, yeah, I didn't know where it was, but yeah, now that I see where it is, yeah.
Yeah, that's significantly more than a quarter section.
Yeah,
So-
yeah, there are some improvements there. Go ahead.
I'd move that County Council donates $500 to the Coldell Lethbridge Community Growing Project with funding from the Council Donation Reserve.
Thank you, Mark. Mark has moved the recommendation that County Council donates $500 to the Coldell Lethbridge Community Growing Project with the funding from the Council Donation Reserve. Is there any further discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? Those opposed? That is carried. We will be starting a swear jar shortly, Haley, for City of Lethbridge, as opposed to Lethbridge County. and you will
Don't
be.
you say that again?
I'm not saying anything. Like, it is an expense, and it's a very pricey swear jar, just so we're clear, but,
Hey, they're gonna go hang you.
Oh, is that-
I'm so sorry.
uh,
Wow, I didn't even notice. Add one to the swear jar.
Gotta do some heavy lifting.
Item F1.2, the financial report ending May 31st, 2025. Haley?
Okay, so I'm just here to give a financial update in terms of where we are at as of May 31st. This is a work in progress, so we'll continue to kind of adapt and adjust this information as we dig into it and allow for some planning in terms of more cyclical and how our operations manage, as opposed to looking, dividing it equally over 12 months, because that's just not how our operations work and flow. And so the first few months are often tricky to kind of project where we're at and what that looks like for the end of the year, just given some of the uncertainty. But for sure, we haven't had any kind of unanticipated surprises in the for the budget concerns or anything that we wanted to bring forward to council. So that's good news in terms of where we're sitting. I think we're in a comfortable position. So if we just break out what the annual budget looks like, just to provide a little bit more detail in terms of the provincial requisitions and the combined total tax requisitions. We've completed that for 2025, and we just need to do some adjustments for the non-residential tax incentives, so that variance of the $205,000 roughly. We'll have some adjustments depending on those applications. The deadline for that was just the end of June, so we've got to dig into that a little bit more until we kind of know what that finalized tax requisition will look like for the county. In terms of just breaking out the financial information by the different departments, we're looking at each department in terms of the annual budget. The second column there in that table is the actual year to date, and then there's the variance on the far right. And so if we break that down in terms of what the budget would be from January until the end of May, it's approximately $8.6 million is our total budget by department. And then if we break out the debt payments as well as the reserve transfers, then our information variance is roughly about $964,000 in terms of the difference between budget and actual. But I think there's just a bit of a caveat there to point out that it's not our operations are very cyclical in nature, and so really that doesn't give much room in terms of going into our busy seasons of the summer and into the fall in terms of the operational work that needs to get done for the county. So I think we're in a good position. I think our budget continues to be fairly tight, and we'll just continue to monitor that, and this information can evolve and adjust as council has specific needs that they would like to review or look at, and just how that plays out, looking at the budget again, like I said, in a more understanding it in this cyclical nature as opposed to monthly. So there's some work to do here in terms of giving additional information and understanding, but I think we're in a good spot at this point in the year. This only includes the operating budget, and inventory is something that we adjust. So for example, fuel is stored as an inventory item, and so then we need to do some adjustments for that, and those haven't happened yet. So we've got some more adjustments to do to get the information, but we typically do inventory adjustments on a more like semi-annual basis. So there's still some adjustments to happen, and so I think we're good in terms of where we're sitting, but we'll continue to review and keep a close eye on where we're at. This next slide is just a visual of the same information that was in the table. Utilities looks a little bit different, just because it's sitting in in a like there's been revenue collected, but it doesn't necessarily match when the expenses were incurred. And so that one will adjust itself out by the end of the year. But overall, you can see from the slide that there's lots of areas where they look fairly aligned in terms of the blue showing the actuals to date or the utilized expenses. And so we've got some, I think we're in a good position. There's a couple areas that look kind of higher above where they probably should be for May, but given that some of those expenses are like, subscriptions to technology and different things like that, then, the timing of when they come out kind of adjusts what that looks like for utilized versus remaining. So I think we're in a good position. Like I said, just wanted to kind of highlight some information and share with council. Also just included in this information is a summary of some of the decisions that council has made up to this point in terms of the council's discretionary fund and what that looks like, and also the Sterling Wind scholarship recipients as well. And so there's some information here. Basically, the total thus far is about $20,000 in terms of contributions to the community. In addition to that, we just included some updates on grants. Devin provides capital project updates on a regular basis, so this is really just kind of a status of where some of those grant applications are at, or the funding whether the funding has been received or not. And so there's a little legend there in terms of which projects have been approved, which potentially have been declined, pending or canceled. And just wanted to provide council with an update. There's a few that have been declined on this next slide, just because there was a lot of information. It carries over into multiple slides, but in this instance, there's been a few that have been declined, like the Broxburn wastewater septic field replacement project has been declined. So that's got also some funding from the utility reserve, and so we'll just have to kind of review what that project looks like in terms of funding with it not being approved through the LGSG grant. So that is the grant information. And then also just wanted to include some information about the investments that we currently have and hold. This is regularly reviewed in terms of cash flow needs, depending on what projects are happening within the county. And so we regularly review this information, and to ensure that we've kind of we're managing our cash flow needs and the requirements of the county. And then finally, just an important reminder that property taxes are due at the end of July, and we just wanted to kind of put that out there for citizens, just as a reminder to make sure that everybody gets in to get their property taxes paid. So that is my presentation.
Thank you very much, Haley. And if you have not received your tax notice, please reach out to the office and connect with someone at the county. Are there any questions for Haley? Does not seem to be. Thank you very much, Haley.
Thank you.
That brings us to 9:52 this morning. We do have a 10 o'clock public hearing, so why don't we take a recess and we'll reconvene at 10 o'clock for our public hearing. Whenever you're ready, Donna. We will call the meeting back to order at 10:02 a.m. this morning. We move down in our agendas. We do have that one public hearing today for Bylaw 25-016. So with that, why don't we recess our public meeting, and I would ask for a motion to open the public hearing for Bylaw 25-016. John?
So moved.
John has moved to open the public hearing for Bylaw 25-016. Is there any further discussion? I'll call the question. Those in favor? Those opposed? That is carried. We are here today to hold the public hearing for Bylaw 25-016 to redesignate a portion of the Northwest 31022 west of 4 from rural agricultural to rural general industrial. This public hearing is being held pursuant to the Municipal Government Act as amended. Public hearing is being live streamed via the county's YouTube page. And with that, the public hearing for Bylaw 25-016 is now officially open. I will now ask for a review of the nature of the hearing and an overview of what is being proposed. Steve, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This subject of this application in front of you for the public hearing is for a redesignation. It's to rezone a portion of the Northwest of 31022 west of 4th from rural agriculture to the rural general industrial land use district under the county's land use bylaw. The applicant wishes to redesignate the lands to allow for a future subdivision and to expand the existing industrial development on the parcel. The location of the parcel, it's just located to the east and a little bit south of Park Lake on the Park Lake Road. The parcel currently has a welding fabrication business, operates on the property, Park Lake Welding. It's a little bit of a historical background. This council may be aware that years back they did operate just in the KIP area there beside the marshalling yards. Then they've relocated to this site by Park Lake that the family owned. In 2023, just a couple years ago, a 5,000 square foot shop fabrication building was approved on the parcel to enable the business to operate as a specialty manufacturing cottage industry use. So it obtained a development permit from the county for that under that categorization. However, that categorization of the land use bylaw for the specialty manufacturing cottage industry does have some defined criteria with that. And the proposed expansion plans would result in the business being operating outside the scope and the limitations of the defined use under the land use bylaw and the current development permit that was approved for the development. So that's the reason that the applicant is looking here to redesignate to the rural general industrial land use district. So part of the application that was submitted, a review was conducted. The application was circulated out to all county departments, external agencies for review. On that basis, comments were received from two utilities, Talos Fortis, as well as I included a overview report for you as part of the package. In looking at the county's bylaws that are applicable, in looking at some of the MDP criteria for industrial uses, the proposal does conform to some of the criteria under the MDP. It could be considered compatible with adjacent uses as the business has been operating there. It is existing. It is noted several acreages along the road there to the north and south of this property. The county has not received any known formal complaints on the business that has been operating there. The Industrial Commercial Land Use Strategy, Policy 5.31, and the MDP, Policy 10.21, do provide some criteria for looking at commercial industrial uses. including some of the general criteria that they're located on fragmented or poor agricultural lands, be adjacent to a developed road network that accommodate the anticipated traffic volume of the development. They have access to services and utilities. Be compatible with adjacent land uses, are able to mitigate any negative impacts to adjacent landowners. And then some of the development site criteria can be met, such as addressing drainage, stormwater runoff, and those sorts of things for the parcel. So as noted, this is an existing business that's been operating for a number of years at this location without incident. The Park Lake Road, which is Range Road 22-3, is a paved, well-maintained road. The applicants indicate that with the expansion, it shouldn't introduce any significant new traffic beyond maybe occasional trucks and a couple extra employees coming and going to the site. One of the things to note, I guess, is that the use may have off-site impacts to adjacent residential properties in the area, just as a welding metal fabrication business. And those off-site impacts could be increased traffic, or as well, probably the larger one, the prospective for noise related to the business operations due to the metal deliveries, that sort of a thing. Now, there were no formal written complaints or objections received on the application. I did receive one phone call from a neighbor on the Park Lake Road. They weren't opposed to the development. They did have concerns about with an expansion there could be some potential noise, and just asked perhaps at the development stage if some extra buffering, some trees or something could be as part of their plan or development approval to maybe help mitigate that. Of course, council dealing on a rezoning, you can't put conditions on it. That is a matter, something like that has to be addressed on the development permit stage as a condition if that was to be a consideration. But on the rezoning here itself, the county did not receive any formal written objections or concerns on this application. So with that, the notice of the public hearing was advertised in the June 24th and July 1st editions of the Sunny South News, as well as posted on the county's website and the social media accounts. And notices were also sent directly to the adjacent landowners. And as mentioned, none of the neighbors have submitted any written comments. So with that, this kind of gives you an indication of the rezoning. So it is a portion of a larger parcel that they're looking at here. I don't know if there's an area location map, but it's not a very good photo here, but it shows you the parent title is in here, and they're looking just for the portion along the road there where they have the existing shop and that sort of stuff. The way the rezoning is proposed is they're leaving a strip for access at both the north and south ends to get in behind to the agricultural land for access. If they were successful in receiving their redesignation today, then they would be coming back to council with a subdivision application that would match the rezoning that's put in place. So with that as the overview, I don't know if there's any questions.
Thank you very much, Steve. This is council's opportunity to receive input from the public. Those making presentations are asked to state their name and review their points. We ask that you refrain from asking questions to council. The intention of the public hearing is not to debate or defend the contents of the bylaw or the position which individual councillors may have on the bylaw. Questions asked of a councillor by a presenter may be ruled out of order. Presentations to council will start with the applicant who's made a submission, followed by any other persons wishing to comment on the proposal. Please keep your comments to the point. After each speaker, members of council will be permitted to ask questions of the presenter to clarify any details. No debating or questions from the floor will be allowed. Each speaker will be allotted up to 10 minutes. Additional time may be granted at the discretion of council. With that, I would ask the applicant who has made the submission request to speak. I would open the floor then if anyone else wishes to speak to the proposed bylaw. And for a third and final time, I would ask if there's anyone wishing to speak to the proposed bylaw. If there is nothing further, I would ask for a motion to close the public hearing. Morris? Morris has moved to close the public hearing for bylaw 25-016. Any further discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. With the resumption of our public meeting, I would now open it up to any questions, discussion council might have. Go ahead, John.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just in terms of the location of this, and as I understand it, there's a commercial greenhouse that's just immediately to the south of this property as well, or is that something that that administration's privy to? Yeah. Not that it matters. It's just more to put it out there for the record. Yeah, and that's where the greenhouse is. Just below your cursor, that next property.
So this here is the subject parcel you're dealing with here?
Right. Perfect. Thank you, Steve.
Go ahead, John.
Thank you. Given that, I'd like to move that bylaw 25-016 be read a second time.
Thank you, John. John has moved that bylaw 25-016 be read for a second time. Is there any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Kevin, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd move that bylaw 25-016 be read a third time.
Thank you, Kevin. Kevin has moved the bylaw 25-016 be read for a third time. Is there any further discussion? I'll call the question. Those in favor? Those opposed? That is carried. Thank you very much, Steve. We can move down. F2, Development and Infrastructure. F2.1, Development Permit Application 2025-126, GW Farms Incorporated. Morning, Jessica.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of council. So the Planning and Development Department received a development permit application, which was submitted for cannabis cultivation and processing, also including an ATCO trailer, a Quonset, and 6 shipping containers, with a setback waiver to allow shipping containers to touch. Due to the requested waiver, this application was considered a discretionary use, and council is the development authority on development permit applications for discretionary uses under the Direct Control Bylaw 25-010. Pull up here. So in May, this bylaw 25-010 was approved. So council previously approved accessory buildings, cannabis cultivation, cannabis processing, and offices as permitted under this direct control bylaw. This particular parcel, if you remember, is just to the east of the city, kind of along the river bottom. Direct Control Bylaw 25-010 requires that accessory buildings or structures shall be set back a minimum of 10 feet from the principal building and from all other structures on the same lot. And council is the development authority for discretionary use applications or under this Direct Control Bylaw. So because the shipping containers were requested to be at 0 spacing between them, it's considered a waiver or a variance request, and which is why it's being presented to council. All other uses on this application are considered permitted. Background information on this is that we received the application for the cannabis cultivation and processing with those setback waivers. According to the applicant, Health Canada requires a contiguous structure with no separation for storage on cannabis products. We did circulate this application electronically to internal county departments and Health Canada. There were no concerns received back from internal members of staff, but we did not receive a response from Health Canada. So it wasn't verified whether or not that contiguous structure was actually a requirement. In reviewing the application, though, there are no concerns with allowing the shipping containers to touch, nor are there any concerns with the other requested uses. With that in mind, we would recommend that the development permit application 2025-126 be approved as drafted. Reasons for this would be that all uses with the exception of the shipping containers with the requested setback waiver are considered permitted uses under direct control bylaw 25-010. The reason that the applicant is requesting a setback waiver is due to Health Canada regulations requiring that there is no separation between structures due to the security requirements of Health Canada to restrict unmonitored potential movement between them. The shipping containers are considered one continuous structure in cannabis operations from a licensing point of view and are attached to each other, sharing the same foundation. The alternatives or other decisions that council can come to, or is that county council may refuse the development permit application. The refusal is at the discretion of the council on the basis that the requested waiver is an unsuitable use. County council may also partially approve the development permit application, approving all uses except the requested waiver and requiring that the shipping containers be spaced as noted under the direct control bylaw. Any future development on the parcel, as far as the financial impact goes, they're subject to the commercial and industrial tax rate. That's everything. Open to questions.
Thank you very much, Jessica. I would open up to council for any questions you might have. John?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So just to be clear, we're looking at approving the development permit for everything together, and the only reason it's in front of us is because of the setback waiver for the C-cans, correct?
Thank you, Councillor Kurbis, through the chair. Yes, that is correct. So you can see on this map over here how in this area they're going to place 6 shipping containers in a securely fenced area. The shipping containers need to touch according to their regulations, and that goes against, or that would be a variance. So that is the only reason it's being presented to council. If that variance had not been requested, everything on this application would have been a permitted use, and I myself could have approved the permit otherwise.
Good. Thank you for that. So given that, I would like to move that development permit application 2025-126 be approved as drafted.
Thank you, John. John has moved the recommendation, the development permit application 2025-126 be approved as drafted. Is there any further discussion? I will call the question. Those in favor? Those opposed? That is carried. Thank you, Jessica.
Thank you.
F2.2, Southern Regional Stormwater Drainage Committee, Horsefly Spillway Phase 2 and 3. Morning, Cole.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Council. So the Southern Regional Stormwater Drainage Committee, the SRSDC, has been working diligently over the past few years to complete the engineering and construction of all 3 phases of the Horsefly Spillway project. Due to the large scale and the Horsefly Spillway project and associated costs, it was split into 3 phases. And so phase 1 is currently underway and completed, and phase 2 and 3 are still outstanding. So to date, Lethbridge County has contributed $888,910 towards phase 1 of this project, and has committed $307,389 towards phase 2 and 3 of this project, totaling the $1.196299 million for all 3 phases. When we went back in the records, there was a commitment from the county at the time to support the first 3 phases, but the dollar amounts weren't noted. There wasn't a resolution there, and it wasn't entirely clear at that time what the contributions would be for phase 2 and 3. So they are looking for remittance quickly. So we've made the commitment, but we need to formalize the commitment and the specific dollar amounts. So there has been some, outside of this report, there has been some challenges with the significant amount of work that's gone into the formulation of that municipally controlled corporation for the SRSDC group to continue the upgrades beyond Horsefly, where some of the municipalities to the east have expressed their removal from the MCC, and I think the irony there is the municipalities to the west benefit the most on this front-end project, and to the east benefit the most from remaining in and committed. And so those that are still in and still committed to the MCC are actually the ones that get the diminishing return as time goes on, and have committed based on the front-end commitment from those other municipalities going into this. So we're not entire, and the reason I share this is it'll affect our funding recommendations. So 2 years ago, we began our commitments to the SRSDC Reserve Fund. And with us not knowing what the future of those contributions will look like, our recommendation is we continue to commit to that until we do know, but that we utilize that funding to bridge this amount for phase 2 and 3 to proceed. So we do have some money set aside. So our recommendation is that County Council approve funding for phase 2 and 3 of the Horsefly Spillway project with a total budget of $307,389 funded through the SRSDC Reserve and the Public Works Project Reserve. And further, in the financial impact of that report, you can see that the shortfall from that reserve is only $15,622 that would be coming from the Public Works Reserve just to make up that difference.
Thank you very much, Cole. I'd open up to council for any questions you might have. If not, how would you like to proceed? John?
Sorry, I'd like to move that County Council approve funding of phase 2 and 3 of the Horsefly Spillway project with a total budget of $307,389 funded through the SRSDC Reserve and the Public Works Project Reserve.
Thank you, John. John has moved the recommendation that County Council approve funding for phases 2 and 3 of the Horsefly Spillway project with a total budget of $307,389 funded through the SRSDC Reserve and the Public Works Project Reserve. Is there any further discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? Those opposed? That is carried. Thank you, Cole. As the county's representative to the SRSDC, I just want to thank council for your continued support. I'm very proud that the county's been one of the more vocal and present members of the SRSDC. Thank Devin for all his work on the technical side, Cole, and liaising with Arliss and the other CAOs, and it's been great to see that project get to where it is. I'm hopeful that some of the other municipalities will see the value in what we're trying to do regionally here, from essentially Lethbridge to Medicine Hat, but thankful we've gotten this far, and looking forward to getting phases 2 and 3 funded and completed. So thank you. Moving down to administration, F3.1. F3.1, revisions to policy number 162, communications. Good morning, Maddie.
Morning, Mr. Chairman. Morning, Council. So in front of you, you have a revised policy 162, communications, for you to review and amend or approve. So this policy was last updated in 2020, and I'm sure as you're aware, since then, the Communications and Marketing Department has undergone some changes, and responsibilities have changed a bit as well. So this policy has been updated to reflect that, as well as our current procedures and practices. So some of the main revisions that you'll notice, I know the marked up version that you have in your package looks a little crazy. There's lots of marking up. There's a lot of kind of moving things around, but kind of at the core of it, the changes are we've revised mentions of the communications coordinator and changed that to the Communications and Marketing Department. I'm sure you're aware there's now 2 of us in the department, so just to reflect those structural changes. We've added a scope section to identify who's responsible for adherence to the policy. We've removed responsibility of the Information Technology Department for website maintenance and logo use approvals. That was something that's been in the policy for a while, and IT is not really involved in those things anymore. Updated language around the Alberta Access to Information Act and Protection of Privacy Act, which was formerly the Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act, so just some naming changes there. It's enhanced the direction on the use of the county's visual identity and brand, and incorporated the county's brand guidelines and brand voice, which were adopted in 2024. Provided additional detail for responsibilities of council, the CAO, county employees, and the Communications and Marketing Department to enhance clarity among these roles.
We've also removed the section on council administration communication, as you already have a policy that governs that, policy 175. So just removing that to avoid any conflicting information. And then just some general revisions to remove redundancies and enhance clarity. So the recommendation is that council approve the revised policy 162 communications.
Thank you, Maddie. I would open up to council for any discussion or questions. Go ahead, Kevin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd move that revised policy number 162, communications, be approved.
Thank you, Kevin. Kevin has moved for policy 162, communications, the revised policy to be approved. Go ahead, Lauren.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So just a question underneath, let's see, what page would it be on? I think it's on page 3, underneath council. And it says forward media inquiries to communications and marketing department. Does that mean that if the news media comes and wants to talk to somebody on council, you send them to you? You don't talk to them?
Councilor Hickey through the chair, yeah. So typically if the media reached out to a member of council, it would be considered best practice to forward that request onto the communications and marketing department. Typically, like, the Reeve would be the spokesperson for many things, but depending on the subject matter, we may delegate that interview to a CAO or a subject matter expert, just kind of who the best person might be to speak to that particular subject. So that's kind of what we've been doing for the last several years. So, yeah. And then sorry if I may, and then it helps our department kind of track to what kind of questions are coming in, ensuring that, you know, we're all in alignment with our key messages, and if there's any support that we could provide the spokesperson for that interview.
The only reason I ask you that question is it doesn't reflect on this council very often, but a lot of times you'll see on the news that other councillors from other councils speak on issues at random length. So I'm just wondering if, for some reason, after you do something in council and the media comes up to you right after a council meeting and asks you a question like that, you would then refer them to you, or I'm just kind of wanting to understand the flow of this.
And maybe I'll just speak to it.
Sure.
To Maddie's point, I think it has been our best practice, especially as of late. I will find myself getting random media inquiries. They will reach out to the Reeve, maybe not knowing that we have a communications department, period, or not understanding that. If they're especially with the media landscape in Southern Alberta, as it is rapidly changing with different people almost weekly, it feels like at times. So my practice has been just to refer back to Maddie. I said I will direct them to Maddie, and I mean, usually that just gets turned around to them, then Maddie setting up a Zoom interview or an in-person interview with me at a later time. But it just allows for that opportunity to then Maddie and I are on the same page. If I need speaking notes, if there's something in particular that staff thinks that we need to highlight, as opposed to me just reacting off the cuff. I know that doesn't necessarily speak to what you're asking, Lauren, but I think that, I guess that's where I see the role that we've been doing to this point. Cole, sorry.
Yeah, and I would just add to that, I think there's a few benefits to this approach, because even when I first started with the county, even though some of them knew that, it was all of a sudden you get almost accosted, and they want comment and they want questions, and it just gives you a chance to pause too, and for us to figure out the best person. So it doesn't mean that council can't speak to that, and I think if there's a topic that somebody's very passionate about or wants to, we can take that into account, and that really we're not gonna gatekeep those things, but we get a lot of these inquiries where then we can be a little bit more strategic, because I've received it too, or Troy's received it, where it's, you want to talk about the fire ban, talk to Heath, right? Or if you want to talk about some of those things, and it puts you guys in an awkward position if it's a spur of the moment and it's a topic you know a little bit about, but maybe not fully contextualized. We can go back, find out more what they're looking for, and then put the right person in front of them. So it also allows us to be a little bit more unified collectively for the messaging or the decisions the council has made, and strategic there. So we see it as a big upside that, hey, our policy is this, talk to marketing communications. Doesn't mean you can't be the one to speak to it, but it also prevents you guys from getting the camera shoved in your face and and having to just react to something and not being prepared for that conversation or that topic. If that's the desire of council, but that would be our recommendation.
Go ahead.
Well, I do agree with that. It's just often, like I know when I was asked questions, when I would often refer it to the people who know more about it than I did. But I just was more concerned about those offshoot questions, like you see. And Calgary and the city of Lethbridge are probably the two worst for it all. They're all there speak about every darn thing under the sun, and we've never really done it. But it's just, I wondered what you do in that case. But this is a perfectly logical solution.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say that, you know, in the off chance that something like that happens, I mean, the process isn't really that onerous. It's something, if we're on a contentious issue and we walk out the front door and media shoves a microphone in any counselor's face, we can certainly get administration and say, okay, you know, give us 5 minutes. And I think it's a good policy for A, sober second thoughts, B, get your facts arranged, get your speaking notes in place so that we do have a good unified position, you know, and something that is tangible and makes sense, so that we don't get you know, caught saying something we shouldn't be saying or it being misinterpreted.
Go ahead, Maggie.
I was just going to say, I think using discretion as well. I mean, if you're at a community event and you're representing the county and there is media there, and they ask for a comment about why the county's here or why this is a great event, I would say those are kind of those one-offs where you don't have to give the department a call and say, hey, can I answer this question? I would say, yeah, kind of use your discretion on that. But
Thanks, Maddie.
Mhm.
Kevin has moved for the. Sorry, I lost my spot. Kevin has moved that council approve the revised policy 162 communications. Is there any further discussion? Call a question. Those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thanks, Maddie.
Thank you.
F3.2 Communications and Marketing Department update.
All right, and just pardon me, just bear with me one moment. I'm just going to log into mine here. I just had a little PowerPoint I wanted to share for this next one. It wouldn't let me on the other user. Okay, while this takes forever to load, I'll maybe get started. So I'm here to present an update on the Communications and Marketing Department. This isn't typically something that we've ever really done, but CAO suggested that maybe we just give council a little update on the activities so far this year. So we've had a busy start and productive first half of 2025. We've supported a wide range of projects, initiatives, and campaigns across the organization. For a little bit of background, at the beginning of the year, we met with each department to identify their needs, some of their planned initiatives, and potential communication challenges, which informed the creation of our 2025 Communications and Marketing Strategy. We continue to meet regularly with departments to adjust strategies as projects evolve, ensuring our message remains timely, relevant, and effective. Our overarching goal is to keep residents, businesses, farms, and visitors informed and engaged through clear, accessible, and trustworthy communication. I'm not sure what's happened to my screen here. My apologies. Try again. No, I guess not. I guess no PowerPoint today. My apologies. So since the addition of the Communications Coordinator position back in 2024, the Communications and Marketing Department has had capacity and resources to take a bit more of a strategic approach and a proactive one to our communications. So this year we've worked really hard on testing new methods and continuously working to improve how we engage with our residents, businesses, and farms. Much of this work happens behind the scenes, and its full scope may not always be visible to council, so this update is intended to provide transparency and highlight the value and breadth of our efforts so far this year. Our department is responsible for the county's brand management, external communications, so that's the website, social media, advertising, newsletters, and events, writing services, and we are a partner in internal communications with other departments. Apologize. Does anyone have the password to the council login by chance? No, sorry, I was gonna bring up the agenda, but now I've logged out, so. Maybe if you don't mind, I was just gonna pull up the YouTube videos for council to look at, but I can't, like, it won't let me log in on my account for some reason, I don't know why. Sure. See, it won't let me.
But like in this, just in the browser, because then you can pull up your file like you saved it in the cloud.
But it won't let me into like my actual account on here. It's just a blank screen.
But like if you log into the council one.
I don't have the password. Sorry, my
It's all good,
apologies.
it's all good.
I don't know why it won't let me into my account. I've given the right password, but.
Somebody call Heath. On the new Outlook the other day, Heath helped me find where the automatic replies were, and so I told him I went and bought a lottery ticket after. I was like, that's a first. So maybe one thing while this is loading, and hopefully this works with my account for council, and one of the reasons I asked Maddie to present some of this, we've done a really poor job, I think, both sharing with council and publicly about all the monumental work that's gone into the small changes. We all want to talk about the big shiny things, and we spend a lot of time on that, and those are multi-year strategies, but Haley gave her report for corporate services earlier, and what nobody would know is the amount of work at transitioning where we've only ever budgeted annually before, and now we're looking at things monthly so we can get more data to make more real-time decisions, to be more responsive when issues arise. Public operations doing a deep dive into levels of service where they should be an anchor foundation for what we're trying to accomplish, but not something to hide behind. So that's the 80% is what often Ryan refers to it as, is that's our foundation, but the 20% is how do we become responsive? How do we put localized decision-making into our equipment operators' hands? How do we get them so they can grade that road one more time, or they can actually, they don't spend useless time on a road when there's something else that needs that. And it's the same for communications and marketing. The amount of engagement that we've had. When I started, I mean, we had a grant and a consultant to help us with economic development strategy, and we did all of this advertising, and it was embarrassing the number of responses we get. And now all of a sudden, the great work that Maddie and her team has done, people are engaged, they're interacting, they're confident, they're reaching out, they're thanking us, and a lot of it's polarizing. You can do one thing and you make 50% happy and 50% upset, but those little things compound, and this is something we're going to try and do a better job of sharing, because I think it's a really important message for the public that fixing little things like our utility billing and streamlining processes and trying to find better user access to pay taxes, to make changes to your account, like those are all the things that the teams are working on. So it's just this is the start of us being able to stand up and showcase some of that so people actually understand how much work and how many man hours has gone into this. So. Okay, that's as much time as I can fill. Sorry, we're still waiting. Good things are coming your way. That's what it's.
Well, maybe I can speak to a couple of the things that we are working towards in 2025 while this is loading. This should all be in your package, but we have been working on increasing our video content on our social media. We found that has performed quite a bit better than our static posts, so that's something we've been kind of aiming towards, is more video. Our communications coordinator, Kelsey, has been really intentional with when she is scheduling our content on social media, really trying to balance those kind of need-to-know things like property taxes and fire bans and things like that. With some more interesting and engaging content, we've kind of found that's a good mix. People don't typically tend to engage as much with those need-to-know kinds of things, but some of the more interesting content, for example, Councillor Slomp sent a bunch of pictures of the BMO Farm Family Awards. Kelsey posted that yesterday. It's performed exceptionally well. I think we're at almost 90 likes on Facebook right now, and tons of comments and stuff like that, so thank you.
Yeah, way to shut the rest of us up that never took anything.
But yeah, so those types of things we're really trying to find a good balance just to keep our engagement up. And we have found across our platforms that we are seeing some like steady growth in some areas. Facebook not as much, but Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, we're seeing really good growth there. And I think we can attribute that to the types of content that we're posting. We're not getting a bunch of followers at once and then kind of like losing them at the same time. The next time we post something, we're really sustaining all of our followers. So that's been really promising. We've been looking a lot more at target audiences. So instead of with an initiative kind of blasting it out on every single platform, we've tried to be really intentional about how we're reaching those people. So for example, there was a slope remediation project in Mountain Meadows this week or last week. And instead of putting that on social media, we sent letters to the landowners because we thought, well, that's not something that's really going to impact somebody in Turin, but it's definitely going to have a big impact on the people in that community. So just trying to be really intentional with, oh, here's the password. That's a 0. Really intentional with figuring out who is the target audience for this initiative, for this project, who is going to be impacted, and what is the best way to reach them. Of course, that's a work in progress, but something that we've really tried to take a closer look at. So that's that. Thank you, Jared. We've been working more closely with internal departments to understand their target audiences and gain a deeper knowledge of their activities to better support communications. And incorporating a wider variety of information when attending events. For example, at Ag Expo this year, we had our Director of Emergency Services and Emergency Services Coordinator attend, just trying to reach audiences in a different way with different information. We also had a lot of information about development permits and things like that, just based on questions that they had been asked in the past. So kind of taking an ag-focused event, but recognizing that the target audience at that event might be interested in other things that the county has to offer, or about the services we provide. So just trying to really think a bit outside of the box on those types of things. So some highlights that we've seen in 2025. We've seen steady growth on most of our digital platforms, kind of as I've mentioned. We've seen really strong engagement and click-through rates on newer channels like Instagram and the County Insider, which is our bi-weekly e-newsletter. Our email, so yeah, our County Insider subscription e-newsletter has performed really, really well. We have over 1,000 subscribers, and we usually see very strong click-through rates, so people clicking from the newsletter onto our website or any of the other links we've provided in there. So that's been a really great way to get information out. Again, we've kind of seen clear trends in what kind of content resonates with people, so it's allowed us to tailor our future messaging. And the Deep Roots Bright Future video series has been performing exceptionally well. We're really proud of that. It's increased our impressions, engagement, and new followers on our social channels. And so data suggests, just based on our analytics, a need to continue investing in high-performing formats, so things like video, sponsored content, and on social media, and our County Insider email. Some things that are coming up for the remainder of the year. We're working on a communications strategy and a brand refresh for the Lethbridge Regional Waste Management Services Commission. The launch of the My County online payment system, that should be coming later this summer. Some campaigns and messaging around water conservation, harvest, fire prevention week, snow maintenance, the 2026 budget, and anything else that may arise between now and the end of the year. And we'll be releasing 4 more sets of the Deep Roots Bright Future videos. We actually have a video shoot at Western Stockman next week, so we're excited about that one. So yeah. So the recommendation is just that council reviews the activities of the department for January to June. I do have a couple of the Deep Roots Bright Future videos if council's interested in viewing any of those at the moment. Yeah, maybe for those that might not have seen them so far.
You see my Instagram, Morris?
I don't know why they're picking on you, Morris.
Yeah, I don't.
I don't know.
I thought I was sleeping.
I don't think we have shown Southland trailers at a meeting, have we? I think so.
Southland Trailers is not just a trailer manufacturing company, it's empowering people to do it better. We started about 45 years ago in the year 1980. We manufacture everything from small cargo trailers to light industrial cargo trailers and flat decks, dump trailers, and then all the way up to like a big commercial line rent, which is like heavy commercial style of units as well. Basically, that's our MO, is manufacturing, but then we expanded more into team member experience, cafeterias, engineering departments, marketing departments, you name it, you can pretty much find that here.
So we have 6 core values, and of those core values, we use them in everything that we do, whether it be our performance reviews, giving team members feedback, coaching for improvement as well. That way we are making sure that every one of our team members is living and breathing those core values. And although you could be really great at your job, we also need to make sure that you're aligned with who we are and who we want to be as a company.
Without continuous improvement, you're not going to go anywhere. From the top down to the bottom up, we are always pushing that, looking in a better way, understanding how we can make things better. We want our trailers to be empowering to the end customer so that when they go and use it, they're fueled up, they're fired up from using that product. They're going to do a better job for their end customer, and so on and so forth, and all the way down to the frontline team members that are doing those trailers as well. Qualities are king, so our products are king. We just strive for perfection every single day. We take quality very, very seriously. We listen to customer feedback. Every single week we talk about our warranty. Quality control is handled down on the floor by our team members. We have a sign in most of the shop says, I don't accept defects, I don't pass on defects, and I don't create defects. Since us three brothers have definitely taken the reins, it's been a totally different company, and we've definitely changed the way we think and how we operate. And the message that we've communicated throughout the community is a team member experience that is above and beyond, with a 4-day work week, cafeterias, hot lunches and breakfasts in the mornings, you name it. It's a totally different culture here. Right now, Southland Trailers has 560 team members, still growing right now. Being one of the biggest employers in the county is awesome. It's awesome to know that we can support the lives of so many individuals throughout the community, not only in Lethbridge, but the surrounding area. It's been fantastic, and we're not done yet.
We are strictly a finishing fee.
Southland Trailers is not just a trailer manufacturing company.
Do one more. This one is Prairie Hill Farms.
We've got passion, we've got determination. I think if we set our sights on something, you better believe it's happening.
Prairie Hill Farms, if you know nothing about them, we produce Hascat berries, which are hidden superfruit. Prairie Hill Farms, we grow various products out of our Hascat berries, of course, typically into jams and juices. We also have freeze drying capability where we'll make the berries in powder form. We do various barbecue sauces and syrups as well. But a big focus on the business is also in co-packing services. So what that means is we'll take other clients' products who want to produce it on a mass scale and bring it to our facility where they can use our bottling line for our packaging services. So the Hascat berries, the idea behind that is the owner, Rex Mann, very excited to
here at Southland Trailers, we distribute all.
All right, so yeah, those are a couple of the videos that we put out this year, so.
Thank you very much, Maddie. Do you have any questions for Maddie? Thank you very much, Maddie. That the Deep Roots Bright Future video series has been great, and looking forward to what comes next. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Moving down, F3.3, Governance and Human Resources Committee Terms of Reference. F3.3.
Thank you, council. Please bear with me. Candace couldn't be here today, so I'm going to stumble my way through these couple. She's done the lion's share of the work, so I don't want to take away credit where credit is due. But for the first one, the report presents the Governance and Human Resources Committee Terms of Reference for council's consideration and approval. The Terms of Reference formally establishes the purpose of the roles, responsibilities, authority, and structure of the committee, which will serve as a standing body to provide oversight and support on governance practices, human resource strategy, senior leadership performance. The committee will help ensure that council's strategic priorities and workforce management practices align with legislative requirements and best practices. So this is one of a few committees that we have previously discussed. One of the reasons we're bringing it forward today is as we start to establish council orientation and what the onboarding looks like moving in through the next municipal election, as well as the CAO performance review. We wanted to bump the timeline up on this just so that we could start some of that work. You'll see a better summary in the terms of reference as to some of the governance functions, including monitoring progress on council's strategic goals, which we'll be doing early, new strategic planning early in 2026, providing input on governance-related bylaws and policy frameworks, reviewing department and project reports for information and discussion, receiving updates, providing direction on key initiatives, responding to changes in provincial and federal legislation, council policies before presentation to full council. So some of those that are coming forward, we'd have a chance to vet those with council prior, providing strategic feedback on matters requiring fulsome discussion, and then develop and oversee a comprehensive onboarding program for newly elected and returning members of council. So this is, like I said, one of a few, but happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Cole. I'd open up to councils for any discussion. Any thoughts you have on the terms of reference? Any proposed additions, deletions, edits, anything like that? Go, John.
Pretty quiet crowd on that. I think this being a living document, there may be some tweaks needed once we get into it and we find out we had some unintended consequences, but overall I think the document as it stands is a good place to start, and let's move forward with it. So I'd like to move that County Council adopt the Governance and Human Resources Committee Terms of Reference as presented.
Thank you, John. John has moved the recommendation that County Council adopt the Governance and Human Resources Committee Terms of Reference as presented. Is there any further discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? Those opposed? That is carried.
Mr. Chairman, prior to moving down, could then we discuss the composition of that committee as we would be moving through that? So as the terms of reference outlines, it can either be all of council or our recommendation to start with, at least until we get into this, to appoint a smaller composition. Could be 3 councillors appointed annually as part of the org meeting. It would be my recommendation that the Reeve is either one of those members, regardless of the size, just based on some of the functions and duties that live with the Reeve as it overlaps with this, but we'll leave that to council. If it's all of council, then we can proceed without a resolution. If it's not, then maybe we should get those appointees here.
Okay. Any thoughts, discussion on that? Go ahead, John.
Well, when I read through this in preparation for this meeting, it was my interpretation and understanding of it that the committee at this point would be all of council, and that, should we decide to revise it at a later date, we could make that decision at that time. So that was my interpretation when I made the original motion.
Any other thoughts? Cole?
I'm fine if it's all of council. There will just be, especially with my review coming up, it'll be then all of council have to be present for those meetings to make those decisions. So if that's the will of council, that's absolutely fine. It's just if that's going to create a scheduling conflict for some of the upcoming discussions, then that would be what I would put back to council to see how you guys wanted to handle some of that. That plus the governance organization over the next month, we'll probably have 2 or 3 meetings related to this.
Good, Mark.
I think moving forward, after the election, perhaps then we could look at, when we're doing the reorg, appoint a committee at that point, but for now, just transition, or have the whole council take it up to that point.
Okay. Excellent. Then we can move down. F3.4, repeal of Councillor Code of Conduct bylaw. Cool.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On May 31st, the Government of Alberta enacted Bill 50, which repealed Section 146.1 of the Municipal Government Act. It previously required all municipalities to adopt a code of conduct bylaw, a council code of conduct bylaw. As a result, Lethbridge County's current code of conduct bylaw is now redundant, no longer legally required. We have not seen the new version of the MGA. However, Municipal Affairs has been very vocal that they will not support all code of conducts need to be relinquished. And so it is our recommendation at this time that administration recommends that council repeal the bylaw to maintain alignment with the MGA and keep our local governance framework clear, current, and practical.
Thank you, Cole. Open up to the council. Good, Mark.
I'd like to move that council repeal bylaw 17-004, the councilor's code of conduct bylaw, to align with the repeal of section 146.1 of the Municipal Government Act under Bill 50.
Thank you, Mark. Mark has moved the recommendation that council repeal bylaw 17-004, the councilor's code of conduct bylaw, to align with the repeal of section 146.1 of the Municipal Government Act under Bill 50. Is there any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? That is also carried. Thank you, Mark. F3.5, revised employee recognition service and retirements policy. Good morning, Jared and Kira.
Good morning.
We've made some proposed revisions to policy 127, employee recognition, service, and retirement. The revised policy acknowledges that Lethbridge County's success is built on the dedication, talent, and commitment of its employees, and sets out a clear, fair, and consistent framework to celebrate the people who make our community stronger every day. This policy reinforces council's commitment to fostering an organizational culture where employees feel seen, valued, and appreciated for both daily excellence and long-term commitments and contributions. The proposed revisions acknowledge that employees contribute to the success of the county by a long service, but also explicitly highlight that employees' day-to-day contributions are invaluable and link recognition to our organizational core values. So some of the proposed and key changes. The previous policy acknowledged employees' contributions just based on service, but did not highlight the day-to-day or link to our core values. The revised policy introduces a broader focus on fostering an environment where employees feel consistently seen, valued, and rewarded. We have explicitly defined our different recognition categories. We have our Values in Action Awards, our annual employee recognition event, as well as service milestones now. The service milestones, they retain the $20 per year service value, but removed specific branded items like vests and jackets and pins, which better aligns to feedback we've had from employees over the years regarding what meaningful recognition is for them. And with respect to the long service retirement allowance, we just changed how it's written and defined. So it goes to a flat dollar calculation rather than a percentage of the maximum. So there's no dollar value change, just presented in a little bit more straightforward way. We also clarified eligibility, that retiring employees must be at least 55 years of age with 10 or more years of service to qualify for this allowance. So in summary, it's just a broader, more inclusive recognition that celebrates everyday excellence and long service, stronger connection to our core values and organizational culture, clearer award amounts and categories, supporting transparency and consistency, and just a streamlined approach removes outdated elements and adds meaningful and flexible rewards. So yeah, there's no financial impact. We're just redistributing some of the already approved funds. Open to any questions.
Thank you, Kira. Is there any questions from council? Go ahead, John.
Not a question, but more just a comment. I appreciate the efforts that you guys are putting into recognizing the good work that all of the staff within the county do on a daily basis, you know, and balancing that out with people that have been here long term, because you know, I think that there are certainly instances where somebody that may only have been here for a few months shines, you know, with their involvement and their dedication to their job, and making sure that that's rewarded, as well as the person that may have been here for 30 years is I think it's a good philosophy and a good strategy for us to continue with. So that being said, I'd like to move that council adopt the revised policy 127, the employee recognition service and retirements as presented.
Thank you, John. Lauren?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So just a question on the maximum long-term service entitlement would still be 15,000?
Yes, that would be unchanged.
Okay, and my other question is, did you touch the council one at all, or do anything with it? Or have you done anything with it yet?
This was just for
Just for employees?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
John has moved the recommendation that council adopt the revised policy 127, employee recognition service and retirements as presented. Is there any further discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? Those opposed? That is carried. And then our last one for today, F3.6, proposed revisions to current safety policies.
Thank you. And just before we move on, I just wanted to recognize Kira for the amount of work she's put into, this is just the policy, but she's already done a ton of work on building out this framework and starting on what some of the bigger annual event will look like. So Kira's done a ton of work, and that's why I wanted her to present, and she's, as much as I'd like to take credit for some of it, she's done a ton of the work, and so I just want to recognize her for that. With the next item here for safety policies, just proposing a few revisions to 3 safety policies. So the health and safety policy, policy 800, proposing some changes to that policy. Really doesn't change the intent of the policy, however, requiring some changes as it was identified through our excuse me, previous core audit, that we needed to further clarify roles and responsibilities of, excuse me, essentially kind of Cole as the CAO, as the employer, and then further clarify who is defined as supervisor under OHS legislation. So really, those are the bulk of the changes that I apologize, that are proposed in that revision. With the safety records policy, it's a fairly small policy, just outlining the type of records that we retain. And this is currently a little bit redundant with our records management program policy bylaw, as well as OHS legislation and other legislation, so proposing that we rescind that policy. And then the last policy is the contractor safety policy. Also proposing we rescind that, as we have a directive as well on contractor safety. So again, just to remove some duplication and redundancy, proposing that to rescind that. This really around this is just trying to streamline some of the policies, become a little bit more clear and simplified in them, and ensuring compliance with OHS and with our core audit, which we will actually are kind of in the midst of or kicking off our internal core audit currently. So this is always a good way to make sure that we're on top of health and safety and ensuring compliance. Some alternatives are we retain the policies as is. So that's with the two that I'm proposing to rescind, really no change there. With the revisions to the health and safety policy, would result in us likely losing a few points in the core audit and not necessarily being compliant. We could make some partial or additional revisions, defer decisions for further feedback or revisions, or retain them all as policies and just look at making revisions to them all. So don't anticipate any direct financial costs outside of a little bit of time to communicate changes if it is approved. So with that, is there any questions or comments?
Questions from council? Good, Mark.
Just a quick one, Jared. This is the first year that recommendation's coming out of the core audit. It hasn't been an annual thing, or just?
Yeah, we had the external auditor here. I think likely there would have been a couple of you that had met with her and were interviewed, and it was just it was pointed out as a gap that we could be a little bit clearer in identifying specifically kind of Cole or a designate as the employer, and then just really listing out some of our supervisors, especially now that we've aligned a lot of those titles, outlining the type of titles that fall under supervisor, but and we've expanded a little bit to make clearer what some of those responsibilities are.
Any other questions? Go, John.
Just one small sort of procedural thing. Are we looking to rescind these policies before approving policy 800, or because they sort of mash together, right?
With them, I would say the contractor safety policy, we have a current administrative directive in place that covers all of the same things that the policy covers. This is more, the current policy is a bit of a high level commitment on part of the organization. And the safety records policy, it just outlines some of the documents that we retain from a safety perspective, but likely doesn't include all of them. Just it's going to be something that may change and shift. So wouldn't necessarily have to approve all of it, approve the revisions to the policy 800 and rescinding the others. They could stand alone as well if there is something that we want to retain.
And with that, so then if we were to, would we go down the list potentially then, Jared, and approve a motion to approve and then a motion to rescind and another a motion to rescind? Was that what you'd like to see procedurally?
Sorry, John, Councillor Curvis, I misunderstood your question. Yeah, no. I think that would probably be the best approach, just to have them all separate.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Want me to start this?
Yep.
Okay, I'd like to move that council approve the proposed revisions to policy 800, health and safety policy as presented.
Thank you, John. John has motion to approve the proposed revisions to policy 800, health and safety policy as presented. Holy cow. Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. And to rescind policy 804. Kevin?
Move to rescind policy 804, safety records policy.
Thank you, Kevin. Is there any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. And policy 805. John?
I'd like to move that council rescind the current policy 805, contractor safety policy.
Thank you, John. Is there any further discussion on that one? Call the question. Those in favor? Those opposed? That is carried as well. Thank you very much, Jared.
Yep.
Move down to our correspondence. A couple pieces of correspondence. First one before you is the Stock Talk initiative. I did receive a letter accompanying this. I'll read shortly. The focus of the intensive livestock working group is on building relationships, identifying shared challenges, and exploring opportunities related to livestock production in your area. A stock talk typically includes an in-person meeting and, if of interest, an optional on-farm tour. We recommend beginning with an in-person discussion and then arranging an on-farm tour during the summer months if so desired. The overarching goal is to create an established meaningful conduit for ongoing dialogue between the municipality and confined feeding operation owners and operators. Our organization has identified some issues in Lethbridge County. We believe a stock talk could help clarify mutual expectations and improve collaboration on these important issues. I've attached an information sheet, which you have before you. So this is from Laura Lang with the Intensive Livestock Working Group. As she suggested, Laura would like the opportunity to come before council, and I just said that I would add this to correspondence for the time being. So if it is something of interest to council to have that in-person meeting with them, we would then have administration set something up with the Intensive Livestock Working Group to have them come present to council. Is there any interest in us doing that? Okay. Then, is that good then, Cole? You want a motion, or is that okay? We can reach out to them and set that up for a future council meeting?
Yeah, you bet.
Okay. And then our second item of correspondence from the SMRAD, celebrating 125 years of irrigation in southern Alberta. They're having an open house at the Re-designate Community Hall Wednesday, August 6th from 12 to 3 p.m. Family activities including barbecue, bouncy councils, swag, and more. If you're interested in attending, there is a RSVP within the attachment here, or you can talk to someone here at the county, and we'll make sure that you get RSVP'd for that event on the 6th. Go ahead, Cole.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Is there anybody that would like us, or that would know now, that would like us to RSVP for them, and we can get that submitted? And if not, you can reach out to Candace at a later date, but.
Okay. I already RSVP'd, so I'm good. Yeah.
I just want to make sure somebody
Yep.
was going, because then.
Yep. Cool. Moving down, county council and committee updates. Council attendance for the month of June. Division 1, Councilor Lauren Hickey. Lauren?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On June the 4th, attended the FCSS meeting. June the 5th was county council. And June 6th, 7th, and 8th, the Green Acres Board retreat at Ghost River. We did the review of strategic plan and future planning for future apartment buildings. June the 18th, meeting with residents and senior management team. June the 18th was Green Acres Finance meeting. June the 19th was County Council. 23rd was our meeting with the MD of Tabor. And the 25th was the Green Acres Board meeting.
Thank you very much, Lauren. Division 2, the 5th County Council meeting. The 6th had an SRSDC meeting. Also had our joint East-West meeting of mayors and reeves in the town of Tabor. 18th, an EDL board meeting. 19th, County Council. That council meeting that Lauren mentioned with the MD of Tabor on the 23rd and the 25th, and attended Farming Smarter's field school. Division 3, Councilor Mark Sayers. Mark.
June 5th and 19th for the Lethbridge County Council meeting. On the 19th, the evening of the 19th, was South Grove's AGM, and the town of Coaldale hosted that. And on June 23rd, council meeting with the MD of Tabor.
Thank you, Mark. Division 4, Deputy Reeve Curvis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On June 10th, I had a weekly meeting with the Community Futures Executive Director, as well as actually June 17th. And June 17th, I also had a Regional Waste Commission meeting. June 18th, I had a meeting with Prairie's Can representative in relationship to Community Futures. June 18th, I was invited to do a McCain's facility tour, which was extraordinarily interesting, and I appreciate the opportunity to tour their facility. Unfortunately, we weren't able to tour the new facility. It was still the older, the original facility, that because they were still commissioning the new part. June 19th was Lethbridge County Council meeting. June 23rd, we attended the council meeting with the MD of Tabor, along with the rest of council. June 24th, 3rd, I also had a Community Futures Audit Committee meeting, and June 25th, we had Community Futures AGM, as well as a monthly board meeting.
Thank you, John. Division 5, Counselor Slump.
June 5 and 19, Lethbridge County Council meeting, and June 23rd, council meeting with the MDA Tabor.
Thank you very much, Kevin. Division 7, Counselor Seenstra.
Thank you. June the 5th, Lethbridge County Council meeting. June the 11th, Lynn Padway meeting. It was interesting. June the 19th, Lethbridge County Council meeting. June the 23rd, council meeting with the MDA Tabor.
Thank you very much, everyone. And I believe, if I didn't miss anything, I think that takes us towards the end of our public meeting. Is there anything else? Awesome. Thank you very much, everyone. Appreciate everyone stepping up. Thank you very much. And with that, I would entertain a motion to enter a closed Lauren has moved that bylaw 25-021 be read for a first time. There's no further discussion. I'll call the question. Those in favor? Those opposed? That is carried. Is there anything further? If not, I would entertain a motion to adjourn. Morris. Morris has moved to adjourn at 12:29. Anything further? Call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Thank you very much, everyone. Thanks, Donna.
Thank you.